Well, good morning and welcome back to Musings of a Texas Preacher Man. I'm Scott Fisher and I'm glad you've chosen to study with me this morning. Last week we began looking at the subject of the blood of Abel, the shedding of innocent blood by Israel, and martyr vindication. Today we're going to be continuing to unpack the prophetic and eschatological nature of the vindication of the blood of the martyrs, Abel's blood being the first. Beginning in Deuteronomy chapter 32, the Song of Moses, we're introduced to a pattern that takes place throughout the Old Testament prophets and into the New Testament. Understanding this pattern is critical for biblical interpretation. In Deuteronomy chapter 32, verses 28 to 33, God identifies Israel, his own people, as his enemy, and he calls them Sodom and Gomorrah. Now let's look at it. Deuteronomy 32, verses 28 to 33. For they are a nation lacking in counsel, and there's no understanding in them. Would that they were wise, that they understood this, that they would discern their future, or if you check the margin in the New American Standard Bible, it says, or their latter end. How could one chase 1,000 and two put 10,000 to flight, unless their rock had sold them and the Lord had given them up? Now this is a direct reference to the blessings and cursings of Deuteronomy chapter 28. In verse 7 of Deuteronomy 28, under the blessings, he stated, the Lord shall cause your enemies who rise up against you to be defeated before you. They will come out against you one way and flee before you 7 ways. Now that's the blessing. Then in verse 25, under the cursings, he says, the Lord shall cause you to be defeated before your enemies. You'll go out one way against them, but you will flee 7 ways before them, and you'll be an example of terror to all the kingdoms of the earth. His point in Deuteronomy chapter 32:30 is that they are being disproportionately routed by their enemy, and how could this be if they're under the blessing? The only way it could happen is if their rock had given them up. Verse 31 of Deuteronomy chapter 32. Indeed, their rock is not like our rock. Even our enemies themselves judge this. For their vine is from the vine of Sodom and from the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are grapes of poison, their clusters bitter. Now here's the first reference identifying Jerusalem as Sodom and Gomorrah. Their fruit is poisonous. Instead of life, it's killing them. Verse 33, their wine is the venom of serpents and the deadly poison of cobras. In this verse, their wine is the deadly venom of serpents is another way of saying this is that their doctrine is the doctrine of demons. Their false teaching that they are trusting in is killing them. Now, one other important point from Deuteronomy chapter 32 is how it begins. Notice verses 1 through 5. Now, this is a song that Moses was instructed by God to compose and to teach to the children of Israel. It was to be passed down throughout their generations to serve as a witness against them. And we pick it up in verse 1. Give ear, O heavens, and let me speak, and let the earth hear the words of my mouth. Now notice, he addresses them, give ear, O heavens, and let the earth hear the words of my mouth. Heaven and earth. This principle continues throughout the Old Testament prophets and into the New Testament. He's talking to Old Covenant Israel and addresses them as heaven and earth. Just keep that truth in your mind because we'll be seeing it a lot as we go forward. Verse 2, let my teaching drop as the rain, my speech distill as the dew, as the droplets on the fresh grass, and as the showers on the herb. For I proclaim the name of the Lord, ascribe greatness to our God, the rock. His work is perfect, for all his ways are just, a God of faithfulness without injustice, righteous and upright is he. Now remember that Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 identified the rock that followed the children of Israel in the wilderness as Christ. Verse 5, they've acted corruptly toward him. They are not his children because of their defect, but are a perverse and crooked generation. Now here is the prophetic judgment against apostate Israel. The declaration of God regarding their end being given to them at their beginning, the final words of Moses to them as they cross over into the promised land. Now, I've said for years, if there were no other book in the Bible but Isaiah, it would be enough. Let's look at the opening verses of Isaiah in Isaiah chapter 1. We'll pick it up at verse 2. Listen, O heavens, and hear, O earth, for the Lord speaks. Sons I have reared and brought up, but they have revolted against me. Now notice again, in a prophecy against the nation of Israel, the Lord addresses it to heaven and earth. And then he begins to prophesy against their apostasy. Verse 3, an ox knows its owner and a donkey its master's manger, but Israel does not know, my people do not understand. Alas, sinful nation, weighed down, people weighed down with iniquity, offspring of evildoers, sons who act corruptly. They have abandoned the Lord. They have despised the Holy One of Israel. They have turned away from him. It's a prophecy of their latter end, when they will reject Jesus as Messiah, the Holy One of Israel. Where will you be stricken again? Verse 5, as you continue in your rebellion. The whole head is sick and the whole heart is faint. Now this is the covenantal judgments that are coming against their apostasy over the course of their entire history. And the Lord's saying to them, where else can I strike you that I haven't already struck you? From the sole of the foot even to the head, there's nothing sound in it, only bruises, welts, and raw wounds, not pressed out or bandaged, nor softened with oil. Your land is desolate. Your cities are burned with fire. Your fields, strangers are devouring them in your presence. It is desolation, as overthrown by strangers. The daughter of Zion is left like a shelter in a vineyard, like a watchman's hut in a cucumber field, like a besieged city. Unless the Lord of hosts had left us a few survivors, we would be like Sodom. We would be like Gomorrah. And once again, the apostate nation, the apostate city, is referred to as Sodom and Gomorrah. Verse 10, hear the word of the Lord, you rulers of Sodom. Give ear to the instruction of our God. You people of Gomorrah. The rulers of Sodom are the religious leaders, the chief priests, the Pharisees, and the scribes. Now, we go to Jeremiah chapter 23, which is also a messianic prophecy of judgment against the apostates at the time of Messiah. And it's very similar in tone to Jesus' rebuke of the Pharisees in Matthew chapter 23. Now today we're just going to look at two verses from Jeremiah 23 for the sake of time. We're going to look at verses 13 and 14. Moreover, among the prophets of Samaria, I saw an offensive thing. They prophesied by Baal and led my people astray. Also among the prophets of Jerusalem, I've seen a horrible thing. The committing of adultery and walking in falsehood, and they strengthen the hands of evildoers, so that no one has turned back from his wickedness. All of them have become to me like Sodom, and her inhabitants like Gomorrah. And once again, the apostates of Israel at the time of Messiah are referred to as Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, I believe all of the New Testament was completely written prior to 70 AD, including the book of Revelation. I believe the book of Revelation is a prophecy concerning the coming destruction of Jerusalem and the old covenantal system, the temple, the priesthood, and everything associated with it in the 70 AD destruction of Jerusalem prophesied by Jesus in the Olivet Discourse and other parables that he told. Now, about 5 years ago, as I was teaching through the book of Revelation, this came alive for me, and I began to see and understand what was taking place. The dots began to be connected for me. It was in Revelation chapter 11, verse 8. And their dead bodies will lie in the street of the great city, which is mystically called Sodom and Egypt, where also their Lord was crucified. Now here, John speaks of the great city, which is Jerusalem, and which is mystically called Sodom and Egypt, where also their Lord was crucified. There can be no doubt about it. Jesus was crucified in Jerusalem. And the great city, the holy city, is called by the name of Old Testament enemies of God, Sodom and Egypt. And he goes on through the book. The Babylon of Revelation is also Jerusalem. She, Jerusalem, is the great harlot, the adulterous wife. Well, this will serve as a foundation for what we're going to be looking at in the rest of the week. Search the scriptures. Let the scriptures be your source. I want to thank you for studying with me this morning. And listen, if what I'm sharing with you goes against what you've always believed, don't be afraid or intimidated. Study the Word. And we'll be picking up right here again tomorrow morning as we continue our study of the truth of the Messianic kingdom and continue to look at the vengeance poured out on Jerusalem for the blood of the righteous. I want to thank you for joining me for Musings of a Texas Preacher Man, and I hope you'll continue to join me Tuesday mornings through Friday mornings each week right here. Why not click on the subscribe button on the lower right corner of your screen, and you'll be notified in YouTube whenever a new video gets posted. And if you're watching on Facebook, consider sharing this on your wall and invite your friends to watch it. And if you saw it on Twitter, retweet it and encourage your friends to watch. If you live in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, why not join me on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. for Tuesday Nights in the Word? We'll be right here tonight. Come out and join us. Hey, I hope you'll go out and make today a great day.